Coming up, South Africa's Cheetah Challenge gets underway. There's a moose on the loose in Utah. A rare albino crow has amazed locals in a southern Indian village. And science steps in to help a shy pair of pandas. But first, why did the sea lion cross the road? That's what California's state wildlife officials were trying to figure out when a male sea lion was spotted wandering in a farmer's field about 65 miles inland and 2 miles from the nearest body of water. At first, police and wildlife officials were sceptical about the 315-pound sea lion sightings, but when enough calls came in to tie up their phone lines, they thought they'd better check out this unlikely story. And sure enough, there he was. They've dubbed the sea lion Chippy, the nickname for highway patrol officers, after he climbed up on a squad car to sun himself and gaze at the growing number of bemused onlookers. In the meantime, police called the Marine Mammal Centre in Sausalito to come and get him. Biologists and volunteers from the centre herded the barking sea lion into a pen where vets could perform a checkup. By the next day, Chippy, who's believed to be about 5 years old, was lolling in the California sun and soaking up the media attention. Authorities now believe that he probably swam up the San Joaquin River in pursuit of fish and became lost in a series of canals that crisscross some of the state's most fertile farmlands. Police in India's southern Madras city have also had their hands full after seizing 130 gold turtles from a wildlife smuggler at the international airport. A police spokesman said Sheikh Dawood was arrested by security officials when they became suspicious of a bag he was carrying. Several native species of turtles are subject to strict government guidelines in India and may not be removed, despite the fact that smugglers can get $800 for each one they sell overseas. Reptiles are popular choices for smugglers because they're quiet and less fragile than other animals. However, a reptile's body temperature can change quickly depending on the environment it's in. Turtles trapped in a plane's cargo hold often suffer from dehydration or shock from the cold, while many won't even survive a trip lasting more than just a few hours. It may have been the wind on a stormy Cape Town afternoon, or maybe the single contender in the 100 metres dash needed some more competition. Even the shouts of all her supporters weren't enough to push Savannah, a young female cheetah, to break the record at this year's Cheetah Challenge. Alas, after 3 attempts, Savannah still hadn't managed to break the 6.19-second record, set in '99 by Nyana, a fellow Cape Town cheetah. Held each year for the past 6 years in Cape Town, South Africa, the Cheetah Challenge is a unique event designed to raise environmental awareness locally and abroad. Savannah is part of a group of hand-raised cheetah orphans whose day job is to help educate South Africa's children about their environment and the amazing animals that they share it with. This year, Savannah was joined after the event by 2 young friends, very rare king cheetah cubs, Graka and Mojaji. And while cheetahs are the world's fastest land animal, able to reach speeds of 70 miles per hour, Savannah's still happy to hitch a ride home in the car. A few pieces of moose fur on Alan Zeitlin's window is all that remains from a bizarre incident. He was sitting at his desk sending out emails when an 800-pound moose fell through his window and got stuck. The moose had been spotted earlier by officers from the Utah Division of Wildlife Resources, who shot the 18-month-old female animal with a tranquilizer dart. Still, nothing seemed to slow her down until she fell into Zeitlin's window well and became trapped. And that was the beginning of a long afternoon for authorities who were left with a problem as big as a moose. With the help of a digger truck, wildlife officers, police and zoo veterinarians fitted the moose with a harness and were soon lifting her free. The vets then gave the sedated beast a shot to reverse the effects of the tranquilizer. She was up on her feet and heading back to the wild. An extremely rare albino crow, rescued by a young village boy in India's southern Kerala state, is attracting hundreds of curious onlookers who believe it to be a divine gift. 17-year-old Shalan, a resident of a coastal village near the port city of Cochin, spotted the white crow hiding on a coconut tree. It was being attacked at the time by its more rowdy and more aggressive black-feathered brethren, when Shalan came to its rescue. Besides its plumes, the bird's legs and beak are snow white. While partial albinism in birds is fairly common, complete albinism, especially in wild birds, is extremely rare. The near total lack of pigmentation leaves these birds with little camouflage, and very few survive. Shalan has named the bird Shaki, which means companion, and not surprisingly, news has spread like wildfire and hundreds of people are turning up to see it. Shaki has even been featured in newspapers all across the country. Considered to be amongst the most adaptable and intelligent birds in the world, crows have a highly evolved language and can even mimic the sounds made by other animals. In the wild, crows live for 6 or 7 years, but as a pet, Shaki may live another 20 years. Is your partner hopeless at dancing? Then why not waltz with your dog? A Dutch dog trainer in Haren, a city in the northern Netherlands, is offering dancing lessons to people wanting a canine dancing partner. Ten owners and their dogs braved the cold and gathered in the corner of a muddy sports field to attend their first doggy dancing class. With Shania Twain blaring from a music installation in the back of a car, dancing teacher Karen Appelman and her retriever started the lesson by demonstrating a dance routine they'd thrown together earlier. To loosen up the new students and to gauge their level of obedience, Appelman first asked the owners to make their pets leap through a hoop. She encourages the owners to reward their dogs with a nibble of sausage, but they must have just eaten because they weren't interested in the hoop or the free snacks either. Doggy dancing is already a competitive sport in the United States and Britain and is becoming popular in the Netherlands as well. But Karen is beginning to doubt that there are any future champions in this particular class.
Oké, hartstikke mooi. Goed zo, oké. Je houdt een snoepje voor je hand, een snoepje voor de neus van je hond. En dan achter je, draai je voor, klik.
Next, she demonstrated a simple step with her own dance partner and hoped for the best. But to everyone's surprise, many of the four-footers were quick to learn the basic moves such as circling, weaving between the legs, walking backwards, rolling over, crawling and spinning on the spot. According to owner Marja de Goys, the class is very relaxing for both her and her Yorkshire Terrier Freya. Marja was delighted by how Freya went, even though she had to feed her a week's worth of snacks to get any results. Pretty soon it was time for some freestyle twisting and turning. Appelman's classes run for half an hour and a series of 8 doggy dancing lessons cost €45, regardless of how big or bright your furry friend happens to be.
Ja. Oh. Ja, dank je. Ja, nee, ik vind het goed.
Germans, bored of staple foods like sausages and sauerkraut, swarmed into a Berlin restaurant recently to sample something new when they put insects on the menu. If cockroach pasta doesn't sound too tempting, grasshopper and locust couscous or sautéed maggots with green leaves are some of the other options now available at the Soda restaurant. There are 1,462 recorded species of edible insects, and thousands more than that simply haven't been tasted yet. Grasshoppers, for example, are eaten in many parts of the world. In Mexico, they're marinated in lemon juice, salt and chili for a spicy dish, while in Korea and the Philippines, they're roasted for a quick snack or added to soups and stir-fry dishes. Then, of course, there's the munchy maggot. Easy to catch, full of protein, and properly prepared, they look and taste like wild rice. Chef Lars Schreber said he was bored of German food and thought that offering insects on the menu would be a good alternative. The idea came to him while on holiday in Thailand, where insects are fried at the side of the road. Instead of just quick snacks, he wondered if he could put together an entire menu of insects in European-style dishes and began concocting his new delicacies as soon as he returned home. According to the adventurous chef, many species of insects are lower in fat, higher in protein, and have a better feed-to-meat ratio than beef, lamb, pork or chicken. While most customers are quite apprehensive at first, curiosity often takes over. This first-time diner described her grasshoppers as slightly hard and crunchy on the outside, but soft and juicy inside, before polishing off her whole meal. Along with texture comes flavour, and if you believe the Entomological or Insect-Eating Society of America, the creeping, crawling, flying, hopping creatures come in a wide assortment of tastes. Raw yellow-jacket larvae has a sweet, nutty flavour. Crickets are tangy, and deep-fried wax moth tastes a lot like bacon. The Society also points out that while the average person has no problem chowing down on such delicacies as shrimp, lobster and even frog's legs, they often balk at the thought of eating maggots, ants or beetles. But the times and taste buds are a-changing. A recent issue of the Food Insects newsletter put it simply when it wrote that 80% of the world's population eats insects intentionally, but 100% have eaten them unintentionally at one time or another. Ramona Reuter, a young woman sitting at one of the tables, said the maggots had an oily, nutty flavour. A friend, who seemed a little more sceptical at first, gingerly tried the sautéed worms with green leaves and didn't mind them at all. The restaurant has only been serving cockroaches, locusts, grasshoppers and maggots for a short while. But Schreber said people have really taken to the idea of trying insects, and if they continue to sell like hotcakes, then they definitely stay on the menu. As long as they can find enough suppliers of the creepy crawly ingredients, or micro livestock as they've now been dubbed. About 165,000 people visited Tokyo's Ueno Zoo recently to catch a glimpse of their newest temporary resident, 16-year-old giant panda Xuan on loan from Mexico's Chapultepec Zoo. It was meant to be a union that officials hoped would bear them a rare baby panda, but Xuan proved to be a tough lady to woo. After months of trying, the zoo's own male panda, 18-year-old Ling Ling, had to be sent back to his pen empty-handed. Ling Ling is rather shy by nature, and despite making 3 separate visits to the Mexican zoo, all attempts at natural mating have ended in failure. Zoological specialists say the mating period for giant pandas is brief, and successful mating depends on whether the male and female pandas get along well. Unfortunately, not many do. When Xuan began showing signs of being on heat, the zoo's veterinary staff knew they had little time to waste with the pandas not getting along. A female panda is only able to become pregnant for a few days each year, and so the decision to artificially inseminate Xuan was quickly agreed upon. While the success rate for artificial insemination in pandas is still low, the operation itself went well, and the outcome will be known in a few months' time. The zoos have promised each other that if any cubs are born, the first will go to the Mexican zoo, while the second will remain in Tokyo. Japan first received a pair of giant pandas from China in 1972. And while there are currently 10 pandas on loan to zoos throughout the country, Ling Ling is the only panda Japan can claim as its own. Hundreds of forest guards and volunteers with firecrackers and nylon nets are scouring the swampy Sundarbans Delta in India's eastern West Bengal for tigers in one of the world's largest tiger censuses. Wearing fiberglass protective vests, dozens of teams moved across the delta to determine if the tiger population had fallen in the region. This census is vital to ensure the survival of India's endangered big cats. India, with around 4,000 tigers, has the world's largest tiger population, and the Sundarbans ecosystem, divided between India and Bangladesh, is home to the largest numbers of tigers in a single region, anywhere in the world. The census count can be very dangerous. Many of the tigers are man-eating, and there are also crocodiles in the nearby rivers. Last year, Royal Bengal tigers killed at least 6 villagers, while in 1995 a forest ranger was attacked and killed by a big cat during a census. One of only 200 white tigers in the world has given birth to triplets. Buenos Aires zoo officials announced the news as they let the cubs romp in public for the first time. After a 3.5-month pregnancy, Mother Betty delivered the cubs weighing about 2 pounds each. They have black striped faces and piercing blue eyes, and were all born healthy. White tigers are very rare and can only really be seen in zoos. They're not a different species of tiger, they're just white-coloured Bengal tigers. White tigers are not albino either. They have blue eyes, a pink nose and creamy white fur with black or dark brown stripes, which grow darker as they grow older. These tigers are rare because they only occur when 2 tigers mate and both carry the gene for white colouring. Males grow to be about 125 inches in length, while females grow to about 105 inches long. A tiger's tail alone is 3 to 4 feet long. Tigers are generally solitary animals, except when caring for their young. They keep their cubs with them for 2 or 3 years in the wild until the youngsters can fend for themselves. The 1 male and 2 female cubs are soon expected to be the lead attraction at Argentina's biggest zoo. Officials are also planning a contest in which school children will be given the opportunity to name the playful cubs themselves. Australia's grey-headed flying foxbat is classed as a threatened species, but you wouldn't know it walking through Sydney's Royal Botanic Gardens. More than 5,300 of the large bats have taken up residence here as their natural habitat along the New South Wales coast has been cleared for development. Park staff say the bats which now reside there are not a menace, but they do need to give some of the older trees, which are up to 180 years old, a break to rejuvenate. The bats appear to be creatures of very fixed habits and return to the same branch of the same tree over and over again. This heavy occupation is stripping the trees of their natural foliage and causing concern to environmentalists. In an effort to save the trees and encourage the bats to find a new abode, staff have taken the extreme measures of banging drums, dropping python waste, and applying chili and shrimp paste on the trees. But nothing has worked so far. Now researchers are blasting the trees with water sprinklers to encourage the bats to rest elsewhere in the gardens. The Royal Botanic Gardens Environmental Coordinator said the bats reside in places like these as a safe haven. In the pouring rain across the street from New York's Madison Square Garden, doormen for the Hotel Pennsylvania hail limos for their patrons. Nothing unusual there, except their guests are the four-legged variety this weekend, and only the best will do for these pampered pooches. The hotel has opened its doors to thousands of dogs, offering all the luxuries that their human entourages would expect when paying upwards of $200 a night. It's a case of groom service rather than room service this weekend. The primped, preened and pampered pooches have descended on New York City's Midtown ahead of the prestigious Westminster Kennel Club Dog Show, now in its 128th year. But there are some challenges to overcome when catering to so many dogs, like the call of nature, for instance. And so 75 bags of wood chips are spread across the floor of one of the spacious conference rooms every day. See? Problem solved. By late afternoon on the day before the dog show at Madison Square Garden, the dog run is overrun with 2,632 anxious competitors. The dogs are generally on their best behaviour and are all used to travelling. But with the fiercely competitive event looming, some nerves are naturally frayed. To work off any excess energy, there are a variety of treadmills available for the stars of the show, as well as massages, baths, trimmings and even spa treatments, all at the makeshift Doggy Health Club. Although these dogs are surely some of the most pampered in the country, not all have had experience with the treadmill. Little Solo here insisted on only walking when he absolutely had to. But he was looking forward to the actual show. And this is what it's all about, competing in the prestigious Westminster Kennel Club Dog Show and a chance to win the coveted title of Best in Show. While it's all pomp and poise out the front, it's a bit of a madhouse behind the scenes as frantic owners fuss and primp and preen their four-legged charges. A large white poodle named Starlight Express is getting the finishing touches to her part-shaved, part-fluffed fur. She rests her nose on her owner's stomach as he combs her hair. It's a routine they've performed hundreds of times before. Deanna Glenn spends up to an hour blow-drying the perfectly white and brown ears of her King Charles Spaniel, Bristol. Of course, it's way more time than she spends on her own hair. It can be a tiring business tending to the dogs, and many owners can be found slumped in boxes alongside their ever-patient hounds. One girl was even curled up asleep with her dog, oblivious to the noise and barks around her. George Gordon certainly has his work cut out. He has 12 giant mastiffs, which weigh around 200 pounds apiece. Passers-by snap pictures of Gordon with one of his pets. They look like each other, don't they? Well, there's nothing like show business. And that was Animalia. Bye-bye, folks.